set now. Going to call this Templeton Advisory Committee meeting of 16 July 2020 to order. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty for all.
Justice for all.
All right. Welcome. We added a couple things to the agenda. Let me bring that up. Okay, so actually, I think Debbie just sent notes out. They weren't the actual minutes, were they? And she's on vacation. I think we should defer those minutes till next meeting.
I'll make a motion to defer the vote on the minutes till the next meeting.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Will? We're voting on to defer the minutes.
Yes.
Okay, Amy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Let me get my notebook out here. Yeah, keep some notes. All right. So the next thing is the Gardner News Bill. I thought I picked it up from the town hall, but maybe I didn't. But I've asked them to send us one, just in case. And then I did find the amount. It's $57.75. So to pay the Gardner News Bill, that is for the annual town meeting ad for our pre-town meeting.
I'll make a motion. We pay the Gardner News Bill.
I'll second that, but I thought we already voted to pay it.
No, those were the two that were in arrears that we had from before, Amy.
Okay, then I second Tom's motion.
Okay.
Will
Will?
say FY20?
Yeah. No. No. This will go FY21.
Are we still able to encumber it for FY20 so that?
I don't think so, because I can ask Kelly if she can do that, because it was a bill created in 20 and we got the bill. We just didn't have a meeting.
I think as long as we have the things, we can still encumber that, I believe, unless it's a little different.
All right. I will check with them and see if that can happen. All right. So, all right. Will, you said yes?
Yes.
Okay, Amy?
I vote yes.
Okay. Tom?
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right. Next on the agenda is committee reorganization. It's now that time to kind of reorganize. At this time, I would like to nominate Tom Smith as chairman. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, you do not need a second for nominations.
Okay.
I'd like to take in the nominating Amy Guthrie.
Okay. So we have two nominations, one for Tom, one for Amy. Does anyone not want to be in that position?
I mean, honestly, I don't think that I am suitable as chair at this exact time in my life with everything that's going on in my personal life. I'm fine being on the committee, but I don't think I could do chair. And I'm wondering, can we table this until we have Deb back and maybe the other members that could get seated? Should we wait a little bit?
As far as, I mean, I certainly would be honored to do it. But either way, I'm fine with however you guys want to go forward with things. I don't know. I think Deb had said she wanted to continue what she's doing.
She did. She did. We got an email from her saying that, and not knowing if we're going to get any other members, are we just delaying something that we don't know?
Amy, was that a motion to end up holding this off?
I was just asking if we might want to talk about that before we go further, but if Tom is agreeable, then, I mean, it makes no difference to me. I just want to make sure we can include as many people in the conversation as it will impact.
I mean, I think I know Debbie's position, so.
Well, it wouldn't hurt that they can end up doing that, to take it in for the next meeting also, because you still have until tomorrow, the moderator has the ability to take and end up putting somebody on. After that date, we would end up having to take and end up voting somebody on.
While I agree with that, I don't think that a new member would, I can't say they wouldn't want to, I don't know for sure, but I don't know that a new member would want to step up and be the chair. Just my thought.
I'm talking about just voting period and having a full membership.
Like I said, we don't know when that's going to actually happen.
Have we had any other people? We had 2 open positions. Have we had any other
Nope.
than one interest?
Nope. I mean, Holly hasn't emailed me anyone that's put an interest form in, so.
I mean, I think either way, we need to make sure we continue moving forward as the advisory committee, whether we get new members or not. Just my opinion on that.
Yeah.
Not sure when we will have a full board. We may never have a full board.
Well, right. And so we're only missing one person. And like I said, I believe I understand that person's position on things. So. So I would like to just reorganize. That's me personally.
As I said,
Yeah, that's fine with me. Yeah.
All right. So then so Amy, you do not want a nomination for chairman? I mean, we have another person that's been nominated, so don't feel.
What was your question, Tony?
You would prefer not to accept the nomination for chairwoman rather?
Correct, at this time.
Okay, and I understand that. So we do have a nomination out for Tom. Do we just vote?
Yeah, Will had said you don't need a second on nominations.
Right. So, all right. So
Under as far as Robert's rules in Parliament, you do not need a second for any nomination.
Okay.
Somebody can second,
Okay.
but that's not necessary.
That's okay. Thanks for the education, Will. I appreciate it. I didn't know that. All right. So we're going to vote to make Tom chairman. Will?
Yes.
Amy?
I vote yes.
Tom? Vote for yourself.
I vote yes, I guess.
And I vote yes. All right. Vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Tony Dejoy for vice chair.
I'll second that. Even though we don't need the second one.
Okay. Yeah, I think that I can fulfill the vice chair. I mean, if we get a bunch of new members and someone wants to step up, I'll gladly step aside. But I know with Will and with Amy in their situations that they don't feel comfortable doing it. So I guess I'll be happy to do it. So we'll take a vote. Will,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. And then I'd like to nominate Deb Wilder for secretary. I do have an email from her stating that she'd be happy to continue in that position. All right, Will,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So now that we are reorganized, Tom, you have the agenda.
I do.
Okay, well, I will pass the meeting over to the new chairman.
Okay. Next thing on the agenda is to discuss the current process going forward to holding back spending. I'd asked to put this on the agenda, basically to check with Carter on how the town's doing with going forward. When we last met, we had talked about the cutting of the spending and holding back on any major purchases until we kind of knew what the numbers were going to be. And he had been ensured that department heads were very cognizant of going forward. That I just wanted to get an update, kind of to see where we are with that and how that's going.
On the free cash side, those capital purchases have been going through because it's not our intent to use free cash to close the budget gap, and also those capital purchases were pretty well needed and justified, we thought. Within the operating budget, excuse me, we have issued a directive to all department heads that training, unless it is a training necessary to retain a certification, is to be placed upon hold, that any out-of-state travel, conferences, anything like that is to be placed on hold as well. Wherever possible, we are leaving positions vacant or not filling them on a permanent basis. We have had to, so we have a part-time position in the treasurer collector's office right now that we've been able to leave open for a while, in part because, Tom, as we were talking earlier, you're actually able to get a touch more work done without the physical contact, people coming into the buildings. Senior center staffing is being held as well, because the senior center will unfortunately probably be our last facility to open to the public because of the high risk to the participants, and also the challenges of feeling comfortable that we're able to constantly keep people separated without hovering over them. We certainly don't want to do that. The part-time position in rec of rec coordinator, there was around $7,500 in the budget for that, has also been placed upon hold. We had proposed funding that half-time out of the general fund. The thought was that we'd be paying the first 6 months or so, and then as programs took place, as participation fees were paid, admission fees, sports fees and the like, the second half of the year would be paid out of the revolving fund. Unfortunately, everything's on hold. Also, so we're not going to have that money there when that 7,500 was exhausted. Also, we don't know exactly what the financial picture from the state aid is. We have a position in the highway department that was held open last year for a CDL licensed commercial driver's license truck driver. That was filled with a casual laborer last year. We've had him in training, getting his licensing. We've not offered him the permanent job, and we've explained why, because we just don't know exactly what's going to be done. So wherever we can defer a major purchase, leave a position open, we're doing that, because we honestly, we just don't know exactly how things are going to happen. We do believe that we can handle a revenue reduction of up to 10% without any impact upon the budget. After that, we're going to have to see what happens. Of course, we also, as of today, still don't know what's going to happen with the regional school district budget. Phillipston turned it down. And the school district has recertified the number at its school committee meeting last evening. So it goes back to Phillipston for a second vote. Interestingly, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education certified a 1/12 budget, which if you multiplied it by 12, is actually about $185,000 below what the school district had asked for. Now, we don't know if that would hold, but if that were to hold, bear in mind that our assessment would go down 85% of that $185,000. So things are really very fluid. The economists don't know. So we're just trying to do what we need to do to keep providing service everywhere we can, but making as few permanent commitments as possible and pushing things off wherever possible. Now, there is some training that's required. We required a municipal hearings officer that we did that recent training. Fortunately, that was free with the Fire Academy. Because the state law now requires you go through a training course in order to be a municipal hearings officer. Ambulance renewals, things like that, Tom. But I really think that, it's the same game plan that we had last year and the same game plan we kind of announced to y'all a month ago. I don't know if Tony, do you recall, did we share that memo that went out to all the department heads with the advisory committee? I
Yeah, I thought we did.
recall.
Yeah, I think
Went
we
out
did.
about maybe, yeah, okay. So it's basically that game plan. Happy to answer any questions. Because truthfully, I don't even know when the state's going to start to give us answers. They have not been engaged in budget discussions over these past few weeks, other than the July 1 month spending package that they adopted.
Carter, have you thought at all about holding off on some of the capital purchases just to ensure that when we do get the state's budget through the grapevine, I kind of heard they're now looking at bumping it from what they thought was going to be early September to almost October and November. Have we thought of remaining capital things just to try to save people's jobs when it comes to that point, or how are we addressing that?
Well, some of those capital items were roof repairs, the smoke ejection system from the Templeton Center Fire Station, the replacement of a cruiser that has now failed. There's really not a lot we can put off. And even if we put them off, all that would happen would be that free cash would be certified as part of fiscal 21. It wouldn't be available for us until next year at this time. So we really haven't held off on those, Tom. Those have proceeded. The other thing, if I might, is as we were discussing a little bit earlier, the lead time on that 6-wheeler is close to 10 months. And so if we were to extend something out by 5 or 6 months, the odds are that the piece of equipment we are, in fact, the piece of equipment that we're replacing will most likely fail before the new truck comes in as well.
Well, thank you for updating us on that. I appreciate that. All right, anybody got anything else on spending questions there for Carter? All right, the next thing on the agenda was discussing the membership bylaw and the attorney opinions on people joining the advisory board. Carter, I know it's had gone to, didn't know if you had an update or had heard back from the town's attorneys on what the definition was of a town officer. I know most companies and places can only have one set of officers and the command structure works its way down. Wasn't sure if officers referred to Board of Selectmen on it, officers referred, what it referred to. So I didn't know if you heard back.
We did have a conference call, Zoom meeting with council last Friday. Strike that, it was last Thursday, my apologies. And he is on vacation this week, but he did assign some research to one of his associates. The challenge here is that Templeton did not, in its bylaws, define officers. There is no charter that defines officers. So for instance, in some town charters, it'll specifically say that the town officers shall consider to be the town manager and the Board of Selectmen. And there is no general statute. Council indicated that, you know, in general, the split kind of is the officers are the appointed folks on the boards and commissions, sort of nighttime government, if you will, for lack of a better saying. I anticipate that we'll be able to give you his formal legal opinion within the next 10 days or so. Certainly, we've encouraged him to get that done as quickly as possible, because I know you have one member who would be a candidate, depending upon what the answer to that is. So it's all best I can do is tell you it's in the works, and we're going to try to get an answer to that within the next 7 to 10 days for you.
Okay, I appreciate it. I guess at that point, we'll know more if that candidate is able to do the boards, resign, or whatever steps that they have to go forward with.
Right, and we'll get that out to you and to the moderator as well at the same time. I know that after his 30 days are up, you all can make the appointment, but I still want the moderator aware of the opinion for the future.
Right, and I know that Derek had, the moderator had made reference that he was awaiting to hear from what that was anyways.
Right.
So even if it's outside of his 30 days, I think that it's good for him to be aware of what's considered going down the road. And if we need to adjust that down the road, then that's another possibility.
Yes, we could always do, I think that, you know, once we have the answer back, it may be something that the advisory committee wants to discuss with the select board in general, because it can always be taken care of at the fall town meeting, either with a general amendment to the bylaw, you know, for the purposes of these bylaws, a town officer shall be, and then name exactly who it's going to be, or it could be done within your bylaw alone, because I believe that your bylaw is the only one that actually makes reference to a prohibition on membership based upon town officer or employee. So we have plenty of time for the fall, and I'm happy to speak to the schedule between now and the fall if we have a moment before you wrap up, Tom.
Okay, I appreciate that. Does anyone have anything else as far as the about the members on the other committees. I know I certainly have my opinion on it. I think that I know there's been some concern with the bylaw going in, reason being that they needed to be an impartial board. I think personally, if the person has the integrity to make an impartial decision on the board or on another board or a committee, they're going to make that same impartial decision. Their personality and their traits aren't going to change. But I know there are other wavering opinions in that. And certainly if anyone's got any other opinions that they want to bring up while it's on the agenda, I hopefully feel free to bring those up on that.
Tom, it's Tony. I actually agree with you, and I think that we are in times, not necessarily just because of COVID, that we have a hard time getting people to step up to committees. We have multiple committees in the town that need people, and I wouldn't want somebody on ours that's on 6 other committees because it's allowed, but 1 or 2, depending on what they're on, I think it's okay. I'm not talking out of turn here, I don't think, but Will and I had a really good conversation, and I understand his position. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I just think times are so much different now that some concessions should be made.
Will, do you have any opinion on the membership part of it? I know you've been on for a while, and I certainly respect your opinion on it. So that if you do have one way or another, is it possible to
Well, we've already gone through this, as I told Tony. We are considered, along with the conservation and other boards and committees, as special town employees. And we ended up getting that from Mr. Durensis. This has already been addressed. And it stands, his point was that we're special town employees. If you're on the Conservation Commission, you're an employee, and you cannot be on the advisory committee. And that's been the long-standing thing. I understand that we are not filling the position. We've been in this position before, and we filled positions. It's taken a while. This is not the only community that has this problem. So I don't understand what the hell hullabaloo is about sticking with the bylaw and holding to the bylaw and having us as an independent, not tied to anybody, not tied to any other committee or board. And I'd like to take and see that continue. I mean, we've already, like I said, we've already had that addressed as a special town employee. That's the designation for us, conservation, and some of the other boards and committees that are appointed. It's appointed town employee. We are considered a special town employee. And the reading that we got on that is because of that designation, there's legal liabilities if we end up not having that as an employee and being covered. I mean, I don't know what this lawyer is going to say, but we already have an opinion. That's all I have to say. I mean, I'd like to take and end up seeing us hold to the thing, but I mean, I'm only one individual.
Well, no, you're definitely one individual, but you've got a lot of knowledge to put forward on this subject. And do you think it's gonna? Do you think the bylaw actually, with it the way it is, that if it was tweaked or changed or however you want to, whatever word you want to use, would it make a difference in how the person actually is reviewing things? I mean, I know ethically you can make a statement with the Ethics Commission that you're not voting on your own salary. The only ethical violation on anything like that is to improve a monetary value for the individual. Have we kind of got to the point in our community where we don't have people willing to step up and join the committees, and we need to adjust some of these bylaws? I'm not saying we need to adjust this one, but have we got to the point where we need to encourage people to join committees and help out, or are we kind of staying willing to stay like it is?
Well, if you reference back to most of the other communities our size, they end up having the same type of bylaw, is to make sure that the advisory committee or finance committee does not have somebody on another town employee, which, like I said, special town employee we were considered, and that's we would be changing the effect of that and allowing somebody from another board or committee to be on we'd be in we'd be in a minority. I mean, we would probably end up being the only one or a community in that position where we would allow that. I think there's only communities with less than 1,000 people where the state has always allowed them to take and end up holding multiple positions per se. But I don't know if it's excluding finance committee or whatever. So I mean, we already have an opinion. That's, I mean, I'm surprised we're asking for another one.
I wasn't asking you for a legal opinion. I'm just asking, moving forward, are we to the point as a town where we're struggling to get people on the board and various boards, not just us, this board, and we need to look at how we encourage people to join or not join. I feel like we find ways to have people not get on boards, and in some ways that's not a good way of getting people to participate in town.
I don't think that's going to change people's mind whether they're going to get on or not. In this particular position, for this particular person, they're choosing that they can end up doing it. There's going to be a conflict there because there's a budget that we would have to end up as part of the budget process. The budget process is our biggest thing, and that budget from that committee, as well as any other committee, is where our primary responsibility, other than the reserve, is. So I mean, to me, that's an issue.
Well, I agree. So if they weren't voting on their individual budgets, would it still be an issue? Because I had someone that's on the historical commission approach me and be interested in joining, and their concern is also waiting to hear on this because they're a history buff and they just plain don't want to have to leave the historical society on the board. So where do we draw the line on some of these committees? And I don't know the answer. I'm just trying to.
Well, we are, like I said, we're already there. This is not unusual for us. We've always been able to end up filling that position. It's taken us some time. We've had multiple openings previously over the years, but the committee has ended up filling it, and we've never had a conflict in filling it. I can go back many over the last 8 years and tell you all those people that we appointed on, and there was no conflict. So I mean, I can see us staying with this here and probably filling it. And if in the future that it becomes a bigger problem, then you have a bigger problem in town government than just this committee. Because you're going to end up having other committees that you cannot fill the position. And if you look at what's going on as far as people talking and they don't want to step up, I don't blame them for not stepping up. There's been a lot of controversy as to a lot of people. I mean, I've said a few things and that was my position, and I've taken the heat in the past. Okay, that's the way it goes, folks. But people don't want to do that. And I cannot blame them, Tom. And in fact, that's one of the issues, even with going to the annual town meeting. People have voted for things and things have changed. They didn't get what they voted for as far as they're concerned. So you're going to end up having people step back and not want to get into government. maybe this is the time for this community to look at something other than annual town meeting and look at, instead of open town meeting, is representative town meeting. That way there you have representatives that go to the annual town meeting, because there's still a lot of discussion as to the annual town meeting and participation and quorums, etc. I see committees, communities that actually the selectmen voted to reduce their quorums, and it was only 1% of the voting population. So I mean, this is not just a Templeton thing. I think we should leave things in place. They've worked well in the past. We can end up seeing how we go. We may end up having to take and change it. I don't think this is the time to end up doing it. I think it's setting a precedence that I don't think that if you really look at, especially some of the people, the old timers in this community that I talk to, they don't like to think end up seeing this change. They think we've done well in the past going down this route, and to take and change it is not necessarily in the best interest of the. I mean, we represent those people, and this is how I look at it. We represent those people that are the taxpayers of this community. That's who we represent, and we should be independent of everybody. We shouldn't have ties to anybody else, other committees or boards. I mean, that's just my opinion, Tom.
And that's why I asked it. Well, I certainly respect your opinion on that. I mean, I've talked to quite a few people around town, and then, and like you, but they didn't have an issue. I think my only problem always comes with if it wasn't for Amy being nice enough to, while she's trying to get dinner in the middle of having a very hectic schedule tonight, it sounds, and to be here with us, we wouldn't even have a quorum to discuss or vote on any of this stuff. And my concern is just that when we do have major things going on in the community or in town, and we need to make major decisions, that we sit here and, three of us sit there and look at each other, and we can't do any votes. So we can't really have a meeting, so we don't have a quorum. And I'm just looking at the two empty spots on the screen, and there's two members missing that we used to get valuable input from them, and trying to move forward, we want to try to fill them with people with valuable input. So
in all the 8 years that I've been on, there's only been one time that we didn't have a quorum. And the reason we didn't have a quorum, and you're gonna laugh at this one, we had enough people, but because remote participation doesn't allow you to count that person as part of the quorum, we didn't have a quorum. I mean, and we had a full board at that time. So things can happen. You've seen selectmen. We have 5 selectmen. How often have you seen enough on the selectmen to take and end up saying that they have a high level of participation by all the selectmen? Sometimes there's only 3 selectmen. They barely make a quorum. So do we end up saying, oh, wait a second, we have 5 selectmen, maybe we need another selectman to can end up being it? I mean, we could go down that route too, and saying, okay, we need a 6th or a 7th selectman, so we end up having a quorum. I mean, you could end up dragging this any way you want. I mean, that's, I can end up telling you a whole bunch of scenarios, but do they make sense? No, not to me. I mean, at least. I mean,
so I think that it's truly just a fact of us not having enough people stepping up. Like you just said, Will, that there's a lot of committees in town that don't have people. And maybe if some people were allowed to serve on multiple committees, including advisory, maybe we'd get more people to step up. I think this past town meeting wasn't a good example of attendance. People really attend based on what the subject matter is. If it's just the routine stuff, most people don't go, or maybe they don't know about it, or they just aren't interested. They go about their daily lives, and if they don't think it affects them, they don't show up. And that doesn't mean it's not important, but people's motivations for going to or not going to town meeting are their own. And that's why, setting a town quorum has to be low, because, if you look at our past 10 town meetings, some of the percentages of town voters I've heard that they want for a quorum, nothing would have ever got voted on because we weren't even close. So it's not that I necessarily disagree with your points, Will. Like we talked today, I agree with them, but we can't get people. So we've got to do something to allow people that want to serve the community to serve the community, and like Tom said, have faith in them that they will do the right thing at the right time. If there's a perceived bias or conflict of interest, that they would abstain from any type of vote from that. Doesn't mean they can't discuss it, but that's just my thought.
All right, I appreciate everybody's opinion on this. I mean, we'll certainly wait to hear from Carter on the attorney's opinion on this. And if we have to try to work on recruiting other members or working on adjusting bylaws or any of that, we certainly want to go forward with what's going to be best for the town on it. And sometimes we hold to things that have been historically going forward, and other times you need to make changes to actually move history forward. So there's not always a right or a wrong. It's just a direction to get people on the board and making the decisions for the town. So I think we all agree on that.
As one ex-selectman always says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And you all know who that is.
But is it broke if we don't get members?
Not necessarily. It all depends on what view you want to take and look at it.
What's the definition of broke? I mean, can we get a legal opinion on that, Carter? No, I'm just
Federal
kidding.
government.
I'm kidding. Just kidding.
I mean,
Right.
and like I said, we already had a legal opinion. To take and spend money, to me, is not necessarily in the best interest. We already had that. I don't know if it was written up or not, but I remember it was addressed, and we were considered special town employees. And because we're considered special town employees, we are appointed. There is appointments to this conservation. There's appointments to here. I mean, we're not the only ones that get appointed here. I mean, do we end up having to take and change the format and the quantity for all the committees and boards because we can't get people? I mean, as an example, it's only been, I would say, in the last couple of years that you have had enough people on conservation, because they had enough people, but they weren't showing up. That's a whole nother issue. That's a whole nother issue.
All right, next on, unless anyone has anything else on that.
Tom, if I might.
Yes, go ahead.
Let me just say this is certainly a challenge, and we'll look forward to council has to say, and then where you're all coming from. We have actually changed one committee to try to address quorum issues. The Capital Planning Committee has a provision that if they don't have a quorum, then the town administrator or the designee, who's not normally a regular voting member, is designated as a voting member. So we do have that model that you should maybe take a look at in case, and some communities have alternate members also, where folks may not feel comfortable and, sort of putting their oar fully in the water, but would enjoy an opportunity to attend some of the meetings. And it can be kind of a training ground. And then if full members aren't there, they're able to be designated and they step in to do that. So there's a couple of things there. But if I might get in a quick public service announcement just for the Capital Planning Committee. That will be starting its cycle fairly soon. The advisory committee has a member to appoint to that. Certainly, we'd like to have that member named by Labor Day, if at all possible, so we can get that off the ground. And then we have some citizen at large vacancies on that. And Capital Planning Committee, if you're interested in town government, is a great place to get started, truthfully, because you look at a wide range of the departments, you see how they operate, you see the equipment they need, you start to talk about life cycle and how do we pay for these things. And for someone who's interested in kind of getting an introduction to town government, it's really great because it's just over a couple of month period. It can be fairly intensive every other week or so, but you start in late September, early October, and truthfully, you're done by 1 January. So I would ask the advisory committee to start to think about who their representative might be and encourage anybody out there who's interested in the capital planning process, but only has a short amount of time, or just kind of want to get their toes wet, to consider submitting an application for that committee.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Terrazini brings up two good points. One is to end up actually changing the amount of people on the advisory. A lot of communities have 5 people. There's other communities that have associate members, and the associate members, it's a chance for them to end up learning what's going on. And when you have an opening, they're probably the prime candidate to step forward. Those are 2 options that should be looked at. The fact that associate members should also be on it was brought up by me a number of years ago. That didn't take any traction. People wanted to continue with this. I can look back if you really want to go back in history, Tom, the advisory or finance committee in this community at one time was like 13 people. And then it dropped down to, I see you smile, but it's the truth. If you go back far enough, and then it dropped down to 9, and then it's dropped down to 7. Maybe it's time to take an end up so that we don't have that problem is dropped down to 5. I don't have all the answer, but those are options.
Do you think that alternate would then still fall under they can't be on any other board, or would that be their way of at least starting to get their feet wet with the advisory and then deciding before they potentially become a regular member, would they then decide? Because at least that way we'd get people maybe wanting to serve as an alternate, wanting to take part in discussion, which I think we need. And then
you're right. It could go either way. I mean, they could be on something and it would be up to us to end up. And it's a slippery slope if you end up saying that they can end up being an alternate because they're really not a member per se. They can take in part in the discussion, but there's no voting. So that's where you'd have to get a legal opinion. I don't have a legal opinion on that, but
I guess if they're not appointed and they're technically just an alternate, maybe appointed by us, but not by the town clerk because they're an alternate, then I don't see at least they're learning what's going on and taking part and moving forward with that. But, either way, I think it's something down the road to explore. I certainly wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, either way, for not being associated with another one is an alternative, as well as, like I said, the slippery slope is if they're on something else. I don't want to take that's a legal opinion, and I'm not saying anything on that. That could be a possibility. But I mean, alternates are possibilities.
Okay, I appreciate that, and thank you for bringing that up, Carter. And like I said, we're certainly capital planning. I don't know if anyone that's here tonight on the board is interested in capital planning. I know we potentially could have new members by by our August meeting, and not sure if they'll be before Labor Day, so we'd have that in place for the town's wishes to move forward with capital planning at that point. Unless someone's, I don't know who's been on it as our representative in the past. I'd have to look back. Tony, maybe you could.
It was Bob May last year and Mike Curry the year before. I will give it some consideration. I just got to wait to see what's going on with COVID and what's going on with my work.
Okay.
As far as myself, I'll defer because I was on for 3 years, and 1 year we didn't even have the setup that we have today, and it had been, if you want to call that particular committee is defunct. In 2012, it was. I will declare it as defunct because we had to go searching to get 3 people to even have a meeting. Because I was on that along with 2 other people, and it was difficult, and it was difficult to end up getting to have a meeting even when you have somebody on a standing committee and board that was assigned to take and be on capital planning, and they didn't show up. That was the issue. Showing up is an issue. It has been in the past. I don't know if it's going to be a problem in the future.
Well, and what's been in the past is in the past in some of these things. I think we need to move forward with, getting members and getting people, encouraging them to do these things. It's a very valuable committee, and I think we'll certainly look forward, whether it's one of us or one of the new members, if we are to get them, or we'll move forward with that. I think it's important to realize that although we learn from history, we don't have to repeat it. We can move forward with some of the stuff, and I think some changes are in order and some should never be made. So I think that'll work with that, members on the board. All right, agenda-wise, comments from any of the members or anything else or Carter, or anything else that you?
Well, I just wanted to update the advisory committee very briefly. We are in the process of closing fiscal 20. We are almost spot on with our revenue projections. We have a 97% of collection rate on real estate taxes. We do have one confusing thing we haven't quite sorted out. We're about $100,000 under on our cherry sheet. And that cherry sheet comes straight out of the legislature. Our veterans payments were only about half of what had been allotted, and we're about $50,000 below on unrestricted general government. So we've reached out to DOR to try to sort out if that's a payment issue or not. Interestingly, meals tax, the fourth quarter, though it was less than the first 3 quarters, still came in fairly strong, around $8,900, as opposed to the other quarters, which were around $14,000. And that was for April, strike that, for March, April, and May, when restaurants, of course, we had the Dunkin' Donut drive up, Cumberland Farm, some of those kinds of things. And we had takeout, but meals tax actually held up fairly strong. So we hope to, within the next 2 weeks, just have a kind of a better snapshot of where everything is. Auditors are lined up to come in early October, and we anticipate having free cash available for appropriation at the fall town meeting. With respect to the fall town meeting, we of course go in with, I believe, 4 warrant articles, the 3 petitions that were held over by the board's concurrence, and then 1 other. The plan of the moment is to have the draft of the fall town meeting warrant available for the selectmen's workshop, which is the first meeting of October. Please don't ask me for exactly the date. And then have the selectmen act upon the warrant on their first business meeting in October, which would then provide you all with about 3 weeks because we're tentatively looking at November 4 for the fall town meeting at this point. Now, of course, the challenge there is, will we have some sense of state revenues by mid-September? Because without a final school district budget and without state revenue numbers by mid-September, any gap closing that we need to do at the fall town meeting could be challenged. But that's kind of the general outline. Watch that space. We'll do our best to keep you updated throughout that process. But that's kind of where we're headed at this moment.
Okay, we if you don't have state budget numbers by that point, will we try to push fall town meeting off as long as we can, just to so we don't have to incur the expenses of another one?
Absolutely. I abhor special town meetings. You know, I think that we should be organized enough as a general rule to do our annual and do our fall. Of course, it's a delicate balance. The deeper you get into November to do your fall town meeting, the pile of tax rates waiting to be set at DOR grows. The deeper and the longer it takes DOR to get your tax rate set, now we start growing into the pile of tax rates that have actually been set in bills at the printers. So certainly we want to try, my normal rule of thumb, Tom, is to try to be through town meeting at least by Labor Day. Strike that. That's capital planning, my apologies. But Veterans Day. We would absolutely push it off. We just have to watch that date of trying to get tax bills out in the mail.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anything else they want to bring up?
Nope.
Will?
Oh,
Amy, you got anything that you would like to bring up?
No, I don't have anything. I might next time, but I want to do a little bit more research before I do.
Very good. Well, thank you. Why not entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, Tony,
Yes.
Will,
yes.
Amy,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you very much, everyone.
Tom, you're gonna stand by, right?